If you think you're about to get fired from your job, listen up, because this is exactly what you should do. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to share with you some strategy that you should implement immediately if you think that you might be getting terminated. Now, of course, there's nothing more disconcerting than feeling like you have a target on your back at work. People might be acting a little strange around you, your boss might be acting a little fishy, and maybe HR is sniffing around. And if this is the case, you need to act fast and tread very carefully. So in this video, I'm going to share from my HR perspective what I think you should do if you feel like you might be on the chopping block. But before we get into that, if you're interested in learning how to take control back in your career, especially if you think you're about to get terminated, make sure you sign up for my free weekly newsletter. And in it, I share actionable, concise tips each and every week about how to reclaim control and power in your career, how to interview properly, how to network yourself, how to write those resumes. Keep in mind, it's absolutely free, and I hope to see you there. So the first thing that you want to do is assess the situation and determine whether or not the situation is salvageable, because it is very possible that if it's not too far gone, you may be able to right the ship and get things back in order. And I guess it all depends on how badly you like the job, like the company, maybe the people that you work with. And unfortunately, usually terminations are exactly what they sound like. They're involuntary separations. So we don't always have control over the situation. However, it is worth taking stock of how bad you think things really are and if it's gone past the point of no return. And therefore, you may want to try to probe your boss a little bit to get a pulse of what's really going on. Hopefully, you're having regular meetings with your boss to determine what the expectations are and maybe where you're coming up short. And if you're not, you should get into the habit of doing that, even if it might feel very uncomfortable. Then the next thing that you want to do is document everything that happens. And this in particular includes conversations that you might have, either informally or off the record, maybe in the hallway, or any interactions that you might have with a particularly troublesome person that maybe you're having an issue with. Also consider documenting any objectives, any accomplishments, or anything that's not going well in your job. You want to make sure that you have documented proof of everything that you're accomplishing on a regular basis so that you can use it to defend your position. And as I mentioned before, hopefully you're having some regular meetings with your boss, and this is the perfect opportunity for you to share with them all the things that you're accomplishing, any statuses on projects that maybe you're working on that they may have a concern about, and then also getting performance feedback regularly, because you don't want to wait till your annual performance appraisal or a termination meeting in order to get the feedback that things aren't going as well as your boss had expected. And if something doesn't go well, in particular an interaction with another coworker or a customer or something along those lines, you want to be the one delivering the news to your boss and not having it get back to them through the grapevine or through a third party, because that way you can shape the perception of the conversation without allowing them to jump to their own conclusions. And that's why documenting everything is so important. Get in the habit of sending a follow-up with a very detailed summary of what exactly was said and what was covered. But I also want to stress that you should be very careful about the things that you do say in these meetings or informally and any interaction that you might have with somebody, because just like the law, anything you say can and will be used against you at a future time. And this is particularly true if you're interacting with the HR department. So if you have an interaction with the HR department, be very, very careful about what you say and make sure that it's very calculated before you say it. Obviously, the same thing goes for any electronic communications, any emails, any Slack messages, any text messages, anything that you do on company property. Be very, very careful how you interact there. The next thing that you want to do is make sure that you're doing your absolute best work, because right now everything is under a microscope, and every move that you make, every email that you send, everything that you do or don't do is being scrutinized by several layers of people. And this is especially important if you've been put on a performance improvement plan, in other words, a PIP. And if you have been, make sure that you clearly understand all the terms in the PIP. Make sure you meet all the commitments that are set forth. And if you're not trending on one, you need to make sure that you let your boss know immediately and ask for help. And you certainly don't want to get to the end of the PIP and not have something accomplished and your boss not be aware of it. But rest assured, they're probably tracking you pretty closely behind the scenes and waiting for you to make a mistake. So dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure everything is on the up and up. If you ever needed to reach deep for performance related issues, this is the time to do it. But sometimes that's easier said than done, especially when you feel like the spotlight and the target is on you. So I would recommend that you don't have any knee-jerk reactions here and then just off and quit. Because oftentimes, even being on a PIP is not the be-all end-all. I have seen people successfully come off a PIP and then go on to lead very successful careers in their organization. However, I'm not gonna lie, it's probably the exception and not the norm. And once you get to the point of a PIP, a lot of times it's just a formality. But resist the urge to just up and quit and tender your resignation, because that's actually going to hurt you in the long run. As much as our ego and our pride gets in the way, it's better to get terminated than it is to just quit your job. Because if it's a performance related issue, you can still collect unemployment, unless it's something that's for cause. In other words, if you get into a fight with somebody, you have insubordination or any other gross negligence, in that case, you probably wouldn't get unemployment anyway. Even though our ego may get in the way here as well, it's really important to step back and assess what went wrong. Own up to your mistakes and try to identify where you could improve going forward, because even if it's not with this organization, you don't want to carry that baggage with you going forward. You don't want to make the same mistakes again. And while you're at it, you may want to assess the state of your skills and how you stack up against the market. Take a look at some job postings that are out there and see what employers are demanding in a similar type of job. And if you've worked at the same company and in the same job for a long period of time, you may find that you're a little bit behind the market as far as current skill set, and it could make it a little bit more difficult for you to land on your feet quickly. If this is the case, I would actively be looking at how can I fill the skill gaps on my resume today while I still have a job, because trying to play catch up and fill those gaps is a lot harder when you're unemployed. And now is the time to brush up and refresh your resume. And I know earlier I said we don't want to make rash decisions and quit our job for no reason, but we also want to be prepared. And if they do make a decision to terminate your employment, you need to be ready to go and ready to go quickly. So writing your resume now, and if you're not familiar with how to write a solid resume that's going to get you back into the interview processes quickly, make sure you acquire that skill. Because even if you come off of the PIP, you may decide, hey, I don't want to be in a negative environment where the perception of me is negative, and maybe it is worth testing the open market. Who knows? But it's always better to be prepared than not prepared and have that option. You may want to also take a look at your LinkedIn networks while you're at it, refresh your profile, make sure that you're keeping tabs on what's going on in the marketplace, and then focus on some active targeted networking. And this is also the time to be brushing up on your interview skills. If you're somebody that hasn't interviewed in several years, now's the time to start brushing up on those interview skills so that you can approach your interviews with a degree of certainty and strength. You don't want to be scrambling here as well. This is also a great time to take stock of your accomplishments in your career, especially while you still have access to corporate servers and some of the projects that you may have worked on. And of course, at this point in time, you want to develop a story for why it is that you were terminated to begin with. And be careful not to badmouth the employer. While you're at it, make sure that you have a very clear story to tell in an interview about why you're no longer with the organization. It's always best to keep positive here. Less is more, and focus on the things that you've learned from the opportunity and how you may change your approach going forward. Because at the end of the day, I recommend that you own the situation, show how you've learned from it and what you'll do differently in the future, because that's going to show personal growth. Because listen, even though it's uncomfortable, it's better to own up to it than to try to be shady about the reason you left. So to summarize, and hopefully you're catching a common theme, we want to be proactive about this. We don't want to just sit back, feel all stressed out and woe is me and not do anything other than wait for the inevitable. At the very worst, you'd be fired regardless, and that's not going to change the outcome. But at the very best, you could salvage the situation and come out that much stronger. So hopefully you don't find yourself in this situation to begin with. But if you do find yourself in a panic and you feel like you need additional help, that's actually something that I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com. It's loaded with tips and tricks on how to get you back into the workforce as quickly as you can. I also offer some of my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of some training courses. The first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. The resume is going to be one of the most important tools that you'll use in order to attract new opportunities. So make sure that you know how to write a solid resume. Resume Rocketfuel teaches you how to write a professional quality resume yourself quickly and easily. So make sure you check it out if you feel like you need help there. But once you get into the interview process, it is up to you to market yourself through each step. And that's where the Ultimate Job Seeker Bootcamp comes in. We walk you through strategy on each round of the interviewing process, all the way to the offer, and then give you tips on how to make sure that you're negotiating the best possible deal, not leaving any money on the table. That alone is usually worth the price of admission and can get the money back into your pocket again. And then if you're not sure how to approach the networking, which we talked about in this video, that's where unlocking LinkedIn comes in. You can actually skip the recruiter altogether and build really targeted networks, and that's the preferable way to look for a job. Listen, it's much easier to get a recruiter coming to you or skipping the recruiter altogether than it is to submit applications and hope that the recruiter takes notice. So make sure you check out Unlocking LinkedIn if you feel like you need more help there. And of course, if you're in a predicament and you really need help, I do offer some limited private one-on-one coaching. You can reach me through my website for that. So hopefully you don't need the information that I provided in this video, but if you do, I got your back. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you on the next one.